our next speaker, I couldn't be more thrilled to introduce Senator Mark Udall, senior senator from Colorado. He's serves on a number of different committees up in the Senate. They're all well and good, but most importantly, he is the chair of the Parks Subcommittee, and we could not have a better, more passionate champion for the national parks. I know from a professional level, from a family legacy level, and also from a hobby level. The senator has climbed, I'm not sure how many mountains, and hiked in virtually all of the national parks. We have a senator who knows the parks, loves the parks, and with whom we are so looking forward to supporting him as we move towards the centennial. So, Senator Mark Udall. I'm going to sit up here to help with the Q&A. That'd be great. That'd be great.
Well, thank you, Tom. Good morning to all of you. And I look at two heroes and one heroine of mine right here in the front row. Governor Whitman is a heroine, and I know you spend a significant time in Colorado, so it's great to see you here. And Norm Dix and Jim Oberstar, we miss you in the Congress. I wish you were still there. Jim, as you talked about, was it Quicken Loans Canyon? I remember once being invited to an event in Arizona. It was a dedication of an infrastructure project, and it turned out to be the Goldwater Udall sewage treatment plant. And both Barry and Mo, my father, were gone, so they weren't insulted. But be careful what you wish for. It is truly great to and an honor to be here with you all today. I thought, if I might, I'd share a few prepared remarks with you, and then I'm really eager to have a question and answer session. And I may well have to call Norm, Jim, and Chris back up here. I know Dan Glickman as well, a longtime member of the Congress. We miss you as well. Thank you for hosting us here today on this really important subject. Also, I know Joe Fassler's here. Where's Joe? He's back over here. I want to thank you for your leadership. And also, I think we've got some folks from Xanterra, is that right? And from Vail here. So I want to make sure I give some Coloradans a shout out. Is that right? Don't be shy, because we know we've got the best state going, the Centennial State, with all due respect to all the other states. And so, John Jarvis, pay tribute to you and your flat hats. And is Peggy here as well? She's back over here. So Peggy Udall, your deputy director, is here. I know you've also heard from, I think, Secretary Kempthorne. Now I'm in trouble with Idahoans, but talking about how great my state is. But I enjoyed serving with Secretary Kempthorne, and it's important that the Rocky Mountain region is represented. We've heard a lot about how the parks are America's best idea. And what's so fascinating and important is that we come from all these different regions in the country, different ideologies, different backgrounds, and yet we constantly coalesce around that concept. And we coalesced around it before Ken Burns even brought it further into our consciousness, but it's so true. And if you think about the story of our parks, it really is an epic one of exploration and ambition, grandeur, tragedy in some cases. And Tom, you mentioned that there are unparalleled opportunities for hiking and mountaineering, river running. I mean, the list goes on and on. But they also give us a place of refuge in which we seek a spiritual renewal that only nature can provide. I know some of my religious advisors would say, well, in a church, a synagogue, you can get that inspiration as well. And I think that's true. But boy, the combination of Mother Nature and our needs and our outlooks is such a powerful one. And each of us have those really deeply personal experiences in the park. And I don't want to bore you with all of my experiences, but just last 4th of July, with a search and rescue team in Colorado National Monument, which is in the western slope of Colorado, we climbed Independence Monument. This old man standing in front of you was able to struggle up a 5'9" pitch, and on the summit of this wonderfully striking freestanding monument, we raised the American flag and paid tribute to our country and our tradition. And that's just one of many experiences I've had recently. In a historic context, my grandfather, who I didn't really know, one of the great losses in my life because he died when I was a year old, he was the first concessionaire in Rocky Mountain National Park. And so my mother grew up in a landscape that gave her room to explore her dreams and understand the natural world. And once she had children, she made sure that we were all exposed to those same kinds of experiences. And I pay tribute to her today. And if she were still alive, Chris, I know you're a mom. I'd apologize to her every day for the way I behaved as a teenager, much less as a senator. Then I think many of you know, and you'll indulge me, my Uncle Stuart led the Department of Interior in the 1960s. At the same time, my father, Congressman Mo Udall, was leading efforts to protect our nation's most pristine lands. And I'm really fortunate to be a part of this rich family heritage on both sides of my family. There's a lot of focus on my uncle and my father, but I did really want to make sure you all knew about my mother and the key role that she played. And in that context, I'm just so proud and honored and humbled to be a member of the group here that has this important role to be stewards of our national parks system. And in that spirit, I want to quote Enos Mills, who was the father, if you will, of Rocky Mountain National Park. Like John Muir, I think he was kind of a pain in the backside. And I'm not talking about you, John, when I reference you, but Enos Mills had the vision and the passion. I mean, he famously climbed up 100 feet into a spruce tree in the 50-mile-an-hour winds that are so common in the winter, just to see what that experience was like. But he remarked a century ago, in the years to come, when I'm asleep beneath the pines, thousands of families will find rest and hope in this park. And 100 years after that park was established, it remains a testament to Mills's vision. And no matter how many times I visit the park, and it's just about an hour and 15 minutes from where I live, I'm still awed by the landscapes and the wildlife and the visitors that come to soak up what it has to offer. So let me turn, setting aside that inspiration, in part why preserving and protecting our parks has really been one of my top legislative priorities. Think about this in economic terms. $30 billion in economic activity annually tied to our national parks. More than 25 million jobs attached to the national parks. So you can understand why and Norm, you referenced this, the $110, $112 million in cuts to the national parks because of the sequester. The parks already have a very tight budget. I serve on the Armed Services Committee. I liken the flat hats to the Marines. We always ask you all to do more with less. But at some point, you're doing less with less. And we have to be really, really aware of this. There are people all over the country that understand the effects of the sequester. And in an ideal world, or maybe an alternative universe, Jim Oberstar, we would make decisions based on the common good versus small political gains. And in such a world, we would have passed a comprehensive and balanced deficit reduction plan. We need to get a handle on our long-term debt. I'm channeling my inner Republican for the governor when I say that. We've got to be more prudent. We've got to be more strategic. But in the short term, this is the worst possible way forward. So we're dealing with the cards we've been dealt, but I'm going to stay optimistic. I've teamed up with Susan Collins, and we have a proposal to create a lot more flexibility for all the agencies and all the cabinet secretaries going forward. I think this flexibility concept will gain a lot of traction over the next few weeks and months, but hopefully sooner rather than later we'll deal with this. Let me turn to the parks themselves. We need to look at parks-specific solutions. Before the sequester, we were facing overwhelming, I think is the right word, Director, maintenance backlogs at the parks and other public lands. We love our parks, and I think we all agree that we want our children and our grandchildren to have the same relationship with the parks that we've all experienced. So that's why I'm thrilled that you all are here talking about creative ways to address the challenges that our parks face. Let me touch on a couple of them, and I'm sure we will in the follow-on question and answer time. The penny for parks idea really resonates for me. How about expanding the voluntary guest donation program to the sale of commemorative coins? Those are some ideas that I think really would gain traction to help the funding needs of the National Park Service. And furthermore, we shouldn't let the sequester stop us from planning for the centennial. It's bearing down on us. It's, what, 3.5 years out? But that's why these ideas, such as better utilizing volunteers and promoting renewable energy, are things that the Park Service perhaps could do administratively. Now, I want to hear, John, from you about those ideas, and you ought to look at those proposals. But there potentially are some things that we could do that are substantive without legislative action. And it may be that that's the best way and the most expeditious way to get that done. We haven't been moving public lands bills in the Congress. I know, Norm, you and Jim, although we miss you and you miss being in the Congress, none of us miss what happened the last 2 years in the previous, which was nothing, if you think it through. Oh, geez, now you don't give me any credit for serving there for 10 years. But perpetual gridlock doesn't mean I'm going to stop working with my colleagues. And one colleague in particular, I want to give him a shout out, Senator Portman from Ohio. He's my ranking member on the National Parks Subcommittee. I've served with him in the House. And the insight you need to know about Rob Portman is he's an addicted kayaker and canoeist. Anytime you can get him on the water, you're going to have a willing set of ears. He's even conspired to get a kayak into the Senate gym so that he can work on his role and dunk other senators who are foolish enough to get in that kayak, believing he can teach them how to roll the kayak. But what I want to ask you all to understand is that I'm going to need all of your help to make happen what we all want to make happen in this room. And the work doesn't stop today. If anything, it's going to get harder as we focus on the ideas that could have the most effect and that have the best opportunity to be successful. So let's work together. And I wanted to close with hopefully a little bit of inspiration in that context. If you think about the magic of America, it's in our capacity to transform and rejuvenate. And we saw this in the 30s when FDR created the Civilian Conservation Corps to involve young Americans in the work of protecting and serving our lands during one of our country's most desperate economic times. Just think about the Depression. I know we've been feeling sorry for ourselves and we've been worried about what happened when our economy imploded, and we have been through the Great Recession, but just think about what was going on in the 30s. What FDR did was he helped us realize as Americans that we had common stewardship over our lands. And as he put it, that there was power in joining together in the crusade to restore America to its own people. It's as true now as it was then. And our national parks are a tangible proof of the collective American dream achieved. And under Roosevelt, over 2.3 billion trees were planted and 800 state parks were established around the country in less than a decade. Truly impressive numbers. And, well, how did that happen? Well, I think of it as our two best resources came together, humans and nature, to establish something beautiful, something that would leave a legacy to future generations who've loaned us their lands. That's certainly the Udall 11th commandment. We're not inheriting the earth from our parents, but we're borrowing it from our children. So I'm confident that we can see our way forward even in this time of deadlock here in Washington. And by working together to protect our parks, our collective American dream, I'm confident that we will come up with innovative and creative ways to do so even during these challenging and uncertain times. As we go forward, we must continue to think about the land in the future tense, not just tomorrow, but centuries from now. And our parks, I believe, must and will remain relevant as a timeless testimony to the memory of human and natural history. And all of you gathered here today are a powerful testament to that imperative. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. I look forward to your questions. Let's celebrate the centennial. Let's set the stage for another 100 years of our national parks being at the center of the American experience. Thank you all.